In this section, we're going to be using the Chrome browser to find elements and look at HTML code in order for us to be able to write automated tests. The Chrome browser is a developer's best friend because it is the most used browser by developers because of the number of tools and resources that it gives you built in. In this section, we're going to be going over things like viewing the HTML code, altering the DOM, executing code in the console, finding elements using the DOM, and finding elements using JavaScript. If you don't already have Chrome installed on your machine, go ahead and go to google.com/Chrome and install it. Chrome is so powerful because it comes with developer tools. To open developer tools, you can do it a few ways. You can go to the settings menu, go to more tools, and choose developer tools. Or if you like shortcuts, it'll tell you what the shortcut is right there. One additional way you can go to developer tools is to right click anywhere on the page, do inspect, and that will take you to developer tools. Alright, so what we're seeing right now is the developer tools. A few things that you might want to do is, seeing this little 3-dot menu here, you can change where the developer tools docks. So right now it's set to dock to bottom. You may want it to dock to a new window, so that way you can move it to a separate monitor or do a split screen like this. For now, I'm just going to keep it docked to bottom. Some of the tabs that we have in developer tools are elements. The elements are going to show you the DOM of the page that is displaying right now. The console is for you to be able to see any logs that are logged after the console log, or you can use this to enter JavaScript and actually execute it. We'll get to this in a future lesson. Sources actually show you the files used to render this page. So you can see here's the index.html page, and if you go in here, there's CSS. Any images are here, and you actually have the JavaScript in here also. Network is used to evaluate traffic that's going through the browser for that particular site. In order to enable the traffic, you would have to hit this record button before hitting the refresh key, and then now you can see there's a bunch of web traffic. Performance, you can see the performance of your site. We're not going to go over that in this course, so I'm just going to skip over it. Memory, you can use this if you want, but I'm not going to use this in this course, so skipping over. Application, you can see things in here such as storage. So there's local storage, so you can see all of the things that are stored in local storage. There's session storage, and you can also see all the cookies. And if you wanted to get rid of everything, you can do that for right here. So clear site data for this site. Security and audits we are not going to use in this course, but feel free to use them if you would like. And this last one is just a plugin that I have, so just ignore it. Unless you want to use Augury for Angular testing in sites, go for it, but it's not a built-in feature of developer tools. Alright, one more thing I'm going to show you is this. On the far left, there's a toggle device toolbar. So this actually allows you to change the size of the window, so you can emulate using a mobile phone. So let's say iPhone X. So this is the size of an iPhone X, so you can see what the website would look like. Or you can do an iPad Pro, so you can see it gets a little bit bigger. If you do responsive, then you can just change the size manually, or you can enter it up here if you want. Okay, so this has been a brief overview of the developer tools. Feel free to play around as you like and kind of get used to it. In this lesson, we're going to be going over viewing and altering the DOM. So as you may remember from learning HTML, that DOM stands for the Document Object Model, and it's basically the view in in HTML of what is on the page here. So go to the-internet.herokuapp.com and you'll see this page. Once you get there, go ahead and open up Inspect, and it looks like I forgot to turn that off. So if you still have this responsive thing on, go ahead and click that again, and then it will be turned off. All right, and now you can see the DOM. So I'm actually going to undock this so I can do a split screen here. And now you can see that the DOM is on the left and the website is on the right. So you can see as I hover over things on the left, the page is kind of flashing, and I'll show you why. So let's go from this first body, and then let's start scrolling down here. All right. So you can see this div here. So body, and it's go from body, and then the second div here, and then there's a div where ID equals content. So you can see when I hover that, it is highlighting most of this page. So this is highlighting the code that is encapsulated within that element. Okay, and if I go back up to the previous div, you can see that it's highlighting the very top there, which was not included in the content. So let's go ahead and expand this content even more. And you can see that here's our heading, our H1. Here's our H2. And then there's a group of list items contained in this UL element. So you can see that whole thing is being highlighted there. So if you expand that, then now you can see there's all sorts of list items in here, and you can see as I hover over them, it will identify which ones it is. And if you keep on going in there, then it gives you the link and the title of the actual link text there. So let me show you something that we can do. So just for fun, you can double click on this link text, and let's change this to hello there and hit enter. And notice that that link text now says hello there. If we click on that link, it's still going to go to A/B test. And if we go back, the page refreshed, so it doesn't say hello there anymore, but it shows what it's actually supposed to show, because it's using the actual content and not your placeholder value. But if you click on that again, and you see that everything is still the same. So this is useful if you ever want to like play with the HTML without having to upload it to the server again or open your editor. You can just kind of do inline things like here. Even you can see that they're on the right here. These are the styles. So if I turn off the style color, you can see all the colors changed because it's not using that CSS value for the style. And then if I take off text decorators and if I toggle other things, you can see that things change, and you can kind of get a feel of what the HTML would look like. So it's kind of fun, and it's nice to do for like quickly mocking up things. I've done this in demonstrations where they're like, oh, what if instead of saying A/B testing, we should say A or B testing or something like that. And then I'm like, oh, sure, here, how does that look? And obviously somebody still has to put this into the code and deploy it to production, but we can do a quick idea of what things look like. So what we were doing before was we were going from the DOM and finding the elements on the page using the DOM, but we can do it the opposite way also. So if I select on this drop down and I do a right click and do inspect, and notice that the DOM view, so the elements view of developer tools, will automatically open up that section and exactly what you clicked on. So let me collapse this whole thing again so that we can have a better representation of that. So let's try forgot password. So right click, inspect, and then you can see forgot password is opened up. So it opened up everything necessary for you to be able to see that. So now you have a view of the DOM exactly at that thing that you clicked on. So go ahead and play around with this, finding elements using the DOM directly, or finding elements by right-mousing on an element in the web page and letting the DOM expand out to show you what that looks like. The next thing we're going to take a look at here is executing code inside of the console. So right now we are on the Elements tab in Chrome Developer Tools, but let's move on to this Console tab. If you see anything, any errors or warnings or anything, go ahead and just hit this Clear Console. Those don't really matter for what we're doing. That just came from whatever page you happen to be on. Alright, so let's just do a very simple JavaScript statement in here. So let's do a console.log, and then we can type in hello world and hit enter, and that works perfectly fine. And I actually wrote hello work, so let's fix that. So hello world. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, I just executed JavaScript without really needing much of anything except for the Chrome Developer Tools. Let's go ahead and clear this again. We can do things that are more interesting. So let's create a variable. Let's call this name, and then it'll equal to my name. You can use your name, hit enter. So that is now in memory. So if I type name and hit enter, then you can see that name is stored in there. If we do a console.log of name, and then you can see it logged out my name. And we can do our usual kind of JavaScript stuff in here. Let's do an if statement. So if name equals that, then console.log that is my name too. And there we go. Okay, so you can see that's all good. So it did an if statement, and then we can just make this so that it doesn't return anything, and hit enter, and we're all good to go. So that's how to write code in the JavaScript console. And while we're in the console, we can actually access the document. So when I'm saying the document, I mean the document for the DOM, so DOM. So if you type in document, and then you can see dot, and you'll get all the methods that come with document. So let's just do something simple. Let's do URL, all caps like that, and hit enter. And then you can see you get the URL of the current document. And if you do that again, and you can see there are different things in here that we can play with, all relating to our document. So take a look through there, see if there's anything. You can go ahead and kind of check things out, but we'll get into that more in one of our future lessons. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to find elements using DOM here. So I am still on the internet.herokuapp.com, and I still have my Chrome Developer Tools open to the Elements tab here. So let's take a case. So what if I wanted to find where on the page that the word file is appearing, but I don't want to do it here, I want to do it in the DOM, so I can see everywhere in the code that references the word file. So what I can do is this Control F, and that will bring up this little search thing, and it says you can find by string, selector, or Xpath. So string means that if I type in file, it's going to find everywhere in the DOM that it says file. So you can see there are 3 matches there. And as I kind of cycle through them there, I'm just hitting the enter key. It's highlighting it on the right. You can use these arrows if you want. But yeah, so that's how you search for text. This is very useful, like if you have a hidden element. So let's say, for example, I have a hidden element that only appears when you click a button, but the element is in the DOM, but you just can't see it because it's in a hidden state. So I can use this to search for that element without having it actually be presented on my web page. So super useful. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to search by selector. So selector, it means the CSS selector. So watch what happens if I just type in div. So div is going to highlight the div. So you can see div, and it's going through all the divs. I can do the same thing for other CSS elements. So I can do body, and then it takes me to the body, and all good. So what I can do here is, let's try to find something using the CSS selector. So I'm going to do div and then a. So let's do div and then this greater than sign and then a. So you can see that it's found that one and it actually found another one. So there's 2 divs that are followed by an a tag. Alright, and then we can do another one. So let's go back to that previous here. So within the a tag is an image. So greater than img. So now you can see that that image is highlighted and the other one is no longer highlighted because it doesn't have an image element inside of it. So div, a tag, image tag. Alright, so this is why it's very important to understand CSS for finding selectors, because this is super easy to read, right? You can just look at the DOM, you can find it because you're going to be looking at the DOM anyways to find your selectors, and you can very easily just manually chain them together. Alright, because I can even do something like this. I can take away the div and then I just have the a in image, and that only has 1 matches, so I don't even need the div because a greater than sign image gives me only 1 option there. So that's a pretty unique selector, which is what I'm going for here. Okay, let's see. Let's do something else. So what happens when we have something like this? So we have a UL. So let's try to find that guy. So we have a div greater than UL. Okay, and then that's 1 of 1, right? So there's only 1 thing that has div UL, and then li. Okay, so now I have 43 things in here, but that's great. Sometimes maybe I want all 43 things, or maybe I just want the first one or the second one. So what you can do is you can tell it which one you want. So what you do is colon right after the last element, or the element that you want to kind of specify which one, and then you're going to say nth dash child, and then you're going to do the parentheses, and this is going to start at 1. So this is an index of 1, so the very first one is that one. We can do 43, and that'll give you the last one. If I do 44, it's not going to give me anything because there's no 44th. So this is how you find the specific one. Alright, okay, and now you might be wondering, it's like, isn't there an automatic way to do this? Well, yeah, kind of. You can right click on the element, and then you can go to copy and copy selector. Alright, and then paste that into here, and you can see that it's giving me similar kind of thing. It's doing content, so let's find this. So content is this ID up here. So instead of using div, which is kind of generic, there's like so many divs, it used an ID because IDs are supposed to be unique, so there's only one of them. So oftentimes you'll see it's preferred to start with an ID. So content should be unique as long as the developer is doing its job, and then so the UL underneath there, and then it wants the 10th item, list item there, and then the link underneath it there. So remember last time we just kind of did this thing where we ended here just to get the list item, but you can actually go one deeper and you can kind of do that. So this nth child can be put on any of these elements as long as they have more than one thing. It would be silly to put on something that doesn't have more than one thing anyways. Alright, okay. And the last thing this thing does is it allows you to search for Xpath. I'm not going to really go into that because I'm not a fan of using Xpath. I'll go over that in a separate lecture or separate section, and just for your reference. But if you want to do that, you can go in here and copy Xpath, and you can go and paste that, and you can see this is super ugly and unreadable. Super ugly and pretty hard to read, so that's why I really don't like to use Xpath, and why most people don't, for one of the reasons. But if you really want to do it, you can use that for that reason also. So that's how you can test your Xpath expressions if you wanted to. Okay, we've learned how to find elements using the DOM, so now I'm going to show you how we can do a similar thing using JavaScript in the console. So what I'm going to do is, let's find an element. Let's just do let's do this drop down. So let's do inspect, and then you can see the drop downs highlighted there. Go ahead and right click, copy JS path, and then go over to the console and paste that in. So now you can see we have document. So remember, document is referring to the DOM. Dot query selector. So query selector is going to be our CSX selector, and you can see that it's going to look pretty much like what we were entering in. So I could take this stuff inside of the quotes, so don't include the quotes, just the stuff inside of it, paste it here, and you can see that that's a valid CSS selector. And if I go ahead and I'm gonna just collapse this and just kind of click somewhere up there so that I'm not in the context anymore. But if I go ahead and hit enter here, you can see that now if I hover over this, it says drop down on the right. So you can see that that's the drop down. So that works perfectly fine. And remember how when before we had this little bit of code here where it says there's 43 of them. So if we take out the child out of that last command, and we can see that there's 43 items there. Let's try that with this. So document.querySelector, and then let's just remove this child part, so it should look like that, right? Okay, and wait, we're only getting one thing here, so that's kind of strange. Over here, when we did a search, it searched for everything, but when we're doing this is not searching for everything, so it's actually just giving me the first item that matches. So the reason being is that document.querySelector is looking for a specific item, but there's a way around that. We can do document.querySelector all. So query selector all, and then let's go ahead and copy the contents out of this one and paste it inside the parentheses there, and go ahead and hit enter. And look, you have a list of 43 things now. So if you expand this out a little bit, you can see there's an array. So this is an array because you can tell because it starts with a 0. You can also see it over here. There's the brackets there, the square brackets. But the array starts with 0. And then if you open that up, then you can see that this is actually the element. So it has all this information about that specific element. And something we might want to look at is, let's see if I can find it here. So inner.html. So inner.html is A/B testing. So that's kind of how we know that it's the correct thing. And yeah, so this is how you're going to find also document.querySelector all will return everything. And let's see if we can just get the first item. So if we put outside of the parentheses, if we put the bracket 0 bracket and then hit enter, and then you can see we're getting A/B testing. So it's giving us just that A/B testing. So this is going to be, this would be the same as doing this and child of 1. So let's change this to be the exact same. So let's get the drop down. So I'm going to put 10 in there, and that's drop down. So one thing to keep in mind, so notice how this is 11. So these inside of the DOM, they start with the index of 1. So this is the 1, 2, 3. But since document.querySelector all is using an array, arrays start at 0. So that's why I'm using the number 10 here, because number 10, it would be the 10th element inside of the array, but the 10th element is actually the 11th thing inside of that element, because this is the number 10 index. It's not the 10th thing in the element in the array. It's the number 10 index. So just kind of be careful with that, because otherwise if you put 11 in there, then you would get the wrong thing, which would give you dynamic content instead of drop down.